This is the Batrep for my game number 5 at the Dutch Nationals, and it was me against Thomas Wurdeman. Thomas Wurdeman is, of course, on the German WTC team, and we were both bringing British, so it was a British Civil War. We had both brought very strong British lists. I felt like I had the upper hand, having played Brits for longer than Thomas has, and more extensively in tournaments. So, and I also, just looking over the lists, Thomas had tried to do something where he had tried to like make a mixed platoon with lots of different elements. I was running very clear into one area of the Brits. So, the two lists, we were playing sectors, by the way. The two lists was my 15 orderized Brits with Gurkhas, early war motorcycles, Dhaka stewards, artillery observer, flamer and a jeep, 2 lieutenants and an inexperienced mortar. Thomas had brought 16 orderized Brits with 2 small para-Gurkha units of 5 men, I think, or maybe one of them was 6, I can't remember. 2 engineer units, one of them in a truck, the other in a Bren carrier. 4 artillery observer and a sniper. Bofors, land mattress and medium mortar. Crusader AA, Dhaka steward, and an Indian free squad, 2 lieutenants. So Thomas was taking all of the stuff that you can with Brits, like maxing out on free units. He was playing with 200 extra points. So 1,200 points in a 1,000-point list, which is amazing. But I felt like there were weaknesses in his list, especially maybe for sectors. So I had prepped my game against this Thomas here. I had looked over his list. I had identified his weaknesses. I also knew exactly how I wanted to play sectors, so I've made a plan for that as well. And then I look at the board, and it fits my ideas perfectly. Unfortunately, Thomas gets to pick the sides. He does, and he picks the one that I would have given him, more or less. Maybe I would have taken it myself, but I really liked that we were fighting on that, like that diagonal of the table. It was the one I would have wanted. So here you can see an image of 2 other guys, Patrick and Gaspar, playing on the table that me and Thomas played on. You can possibly see, if I mark it out for you, there were large buildings on the table. There was a huge church, which we divided into sections of 6 inches. So it was 3 buildings for his land mattress. And there was a huge hotel, which again we divided into sections of 6. So this hotel actually ended up being like 4 different buildings. Then there was a row of ruined houses over here, so ruins, and there was a house here, and there was the backyard of the hotel behind this. So lots of different elements to go into this table. My plan was I play the mission because I don't want to get bogged down fighting engineers and enemy para-Gurkhas trying to kill those. That never works out. Steward on Steward or Steward on Crusader, that combat never works out. It's an equal combat. I don't want to get bogged down into that fight. What I want to do is I want to push through the center, and this board is perfect for that because it has buildings in the center. So I can stay behind, 12 inches behind the buildings, then turn 5 or 4, I run into the building, and then turn 5 or 6, I run out of the building into his zone. That was the plan all along. I also knew that my melee was better because he had taken Indians, which meant that he had no op and atom, so I could be guaranteed that I could charge when I wanted to. And that he maybe couldn't because he didn't have anything to modify the pins that he was getting. So that was my plan based on reading his list and the mission, and then looking at the table. What I term turn 0, right? So, deployment. I deploy my infantry behind the hotel, trying to minimize the amount of damage his multi-rocket launchers can do. Fortunately, Thomas gets most of the deployment dice first, and he very early on deploys his artillery in a gun line in his own area. And I'll get back to this, but here I think he makes a huge mistake. He deploys them in area terrain. He deploys all of his artillery pieces in area terrain, which meant that he couldn't move them because they were fixed. So they just stood there in his own deployment zone. He could never move them out, making them into something that was scoring. He was always behind on order dice that could move out and score points, which I felt like was a huge mistake. He deployed his Indians along with the gun line in order to defend it, again in the ruins on his section of the board, and that was it. We were ready to go. I had deployed a little bit. I had set up one unit of Gurkhas with possible support from one extra unit of Gurkhas and a steward to defend my own section over by the church. The rest I set up behind the hotel, keeping, of course, my vehicles in reserves because there was preparatory bombardment. Now, what happened is the preparatory bombardment comes, we kill nothing, although we did have a discussion about what happens when you do exceptional damage on artillery pieces with preparatory bombardment. So if anyone could tell Thomas that you can do exceptional damage with that, and you can kill his multi-rocket launcher with that, which I did, but it didn't matter. I just gave in and said, well, never mind, we'll just kill one guy. Do so in the comments. But what I did here you can see his deployment of his artillery base in this gun line here. Facing the hotel. The center was straight in this building of the hotel. So I knew that if I could just run into here, which I could, there were openings, I could get across the center, I could run into his zone very easily. The only thing I needed to do was damage or pin this gun line a bit. And so my plan worked out brilliantly. I pushed through the hotel, I pushed alongside the hotel into his zone here, I pushed alongside this forest and further on in. And you can basically see on my picture here that I've got my Gurkhas standing where his Indians used to be. This yellow circle used to be his Indians. This is his land mattress. Up here in this yellow circle, he has his Bofors. He has his medium mortar here. And this steward in the ruin here is my steward. So everything pushed through and into his gun line. Thomas tried to counter by pushing up a truck with engineers along this road. He did kill one of my units of Gurkhas here, and he damaged quite a lot of other stuff with his Bofors and sniper shots from the church, but he did not manage to stop me pushing into his zone. He also tried to reinforce his line by pushing up his own steward and his own lieutenant, which again I felt like was a mistake because that meant that they could never be scoring. He pushed up one unit of Paragurkhas, which I ignored for all game. I think they killed one order dice of mine shooting at something. I can't remember what. But in general, they were very ineffective, but they became 1 point, so that was good. The critical moments were when my Gurkhas press up through the center, and he gets the first order dice and gets to use his engineers. He kills one of my units. He damages a second unit on the other flank, but I only lose one unit and I have 4 Gurkha units. So I reinforce my push and I kill his engineers, first pinning them down, then he loses one of his flamethrowers, it runs out, and then I start charging. I pin down his gun line, and I push through the center. My Gurkhas charges his Indians in the ruins, kills them, charges his multi-launcher, kills that, and just sits there in his own zone. The engineers all die, the multi-launcher die, and then at the end, and I'll show you the picture here, Thomas is pushing against my defense. He has damaged the unit of Gurkhas that was defending my zone. Let me show you here on the picture. See, here in this blue circle, I had one unit of Gurkhas and a motorcycle supporting them. Here I had one extra unit of Gurkhas, which could go either towards the hotel or towards this flank, depending on where I needed them. And then I had one steward over in this area behind the hotel where it couldn't be seen, and the multi-launcher couldn't see that part of the hotel very well. So I was pretty safe there as well, and that could again support either way. Thomas puts up an attack here with using engineers and his Crusader AA moving up this way. And he gets the engineers out. His Crusader, by the way, kills my motorcycle. His engineers go out. They damage my Gurkhas, which had pushed up at this point, but they don't kill them. So I have one guy left. He moves back, and then Thomas reinforces. He runs his forward artillery observer into the church. He runs a unit of Gurkhas all the way up here, and I support by pushing my Gurkhas into the church. I kill his artillery observer in close combat. The Bren carrier dies for being too close to me, and my steward shoots at his Crusader AA, which fails an order test and moves back, so that was ineffective for the last 2 turns of the game. The final move that Thomas does, trying to get into my zone, is he charges 4 Gurkhas. He's got 4 left, pair of Gurkhas towards my 1 Gurkha NCO. I've got 2 pins at that point. I shoot, doesn't kill anything. But since he's not moving in a straight line, he has to go around this wall here. We are fighting simultaneously. I roll, I kill 2 guys. I roll a 5 and a 6. I kill 2 guys. He rolls, and he gets no 5s. I kill his unit of Paragurkas in close combat with 1 guy. He even made a mistake. He rolled 4 dice. He should have rolled 2, but that ended the game. The kill dice, the result was very one-sided, and I think that was mainly because of the mistakes being made in the game. My mistakes first. Maybe I pushed up a little too soon. I pushed up turn 3 and 4, which was maybe a little too soon. I lost a couple of units due to that, but it did mean that his engineers rushed up where I could kill them. I, of course, gave his engineers an opportunity to do that rush, but I had reserves. I could kill them. So I sacrificed a few order dice, which maybe I didn't need to, but I felt like the opportunity of pushing out his engineers, having them do their rush, and then killing them was more beneficial than just waiting around. That might have been a mistake. Thomas's. At some point, and I think it's already when he deploys, he forgot all about the mission. Because deploying like that, where you can't move your units, means that you're behind. He didn't really make a plan to push, I think, into my sector. He could have pushed along the central road, although I did, of course, have reserved 2 units of Gurkhas and a steward. But he didn't do that. And he pushed instead flank against 2 Gurkha units that could easily set up charges. That's always dangerous. He had 1 small unit of Gurkhas, 1 Crusader AA, a Bren carrier with engineers in it. Not enough to take out 2 Gurkha units. It's not enough. And they got crushed. So I think Thomas blamed his dice, that they weren't really lucky. I think he made huge mistakes in the mission for this. So the result was very, very one-sided. I win 24-10 on victory points, which you can basically see that I got all the victory points. It was 10-8 on kills, my favor, which again means that Thomas, he only got 2 victory points. He had 2 units that were scoring at the end of the game. Not enough. And I had 14 victory points. So I was pretty happy with the result. It meant also that I won place on the podium. I got second place due to this win. And it unfortunately pushed Thomas down the rankings. That's that's the name of the game in competitive bold action. So that was it. Thank you so much for joining in and listening to my war stories here. I hope you all learned something from it, and if you didn't, well, not my fault. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.